So I will now turn it back over to Kristen Mallory. She is our Director of Off-Campus Study, and I'm going to hand it to her and her incredible group of students who will be talking to you today about study abroad and exchange.
So I'm Kristen Mallory. I am the Director of the Center for Global Education at CMC, and the Center for Global Education manages the Silicon Valley program, the Washington program, and study abroad and exchange. I'm thrilled today that study abroad and exchange get their own session. Usually we try to put everything into 1 hour and then there's just not enough time. So we broke them down into 2 separate sessions, and this one is on study abroad and exchange. These are various CMC alum who have studied abroad. They always send these amazing photos for our photo contest. And I say, how are you going to help me convince faculty that this is an academic endeavor, that you're actually in class and earning credit when you send photos like this? And yet this is what I remember from my study abroad in Paris. I don't remember much about the academics. I hope there's no faculty on the session today. The other thing is, for myself, I did my study abroad in Paris, as I just said, and I lived for 2.5 years in Chad, Central Africa, as a Peace Corps volunteer. I was an English teacher, and the best part about it was that I learned that I would much rather be a mentor, advisor, advocate for students than the actual faculty member. So without further ado, I'm going to go through my little portion and then introduce you to the 4 most important people on this session. So this is a list of the CMC approved programs locations. Obviously, right now, not every location is open because of the pandemic, but we have about 120 approved programs in about 45 different countries. We also have 2 domestic exchange programs, one's at Haverford College in Philadelphia, typo, and one's at Spelman College in Atlanta. While students are off campus during the semester, academic year, calendar year, or as in with our other programs, they can go abroad for a semester, they can return and then go abroad again, or off campus again. They receive full academic credit. They can get credit for their majors, sequence, other requirements. And the number one thing they have to prove is that they can graduate on time. So students don't realize it, but behind the scenes, I'm doing degree audits to make sure that their study abroad will include the credits and the courses they need to make sure that they will graduate on time. Again, my portion is very brief. The cost of study abroad or exchange is almost identical on the invoice to a semester at CMC, and it covers the abroad or exchange tuition, fees, housing, meals, local transportation, round-trip airfare to and from their destination from their home, and health insurance. All CMC financial aid awards, scholarships, aid packages travel. And we have 2 additional scholarships that are up to $2,500 on top of their financial aid package, or their package through the financial aid office, to additionally offset any personal expenses. Personal expenses would include passport, student visa if necessary, depending upon where they go. I'm a coffee, I drink coffee all day long. I would be popping into coffee shops all day long abroad. I do that when I'm abroad because I'm always carrying coffee with me. Other personal expenses would be outside entertainment if they want to travel to another city in the country, etc. The big question many people are having is coronavirus. What are we doing? You will see from our panel of students, including 2 who have and are studying abroad, we are encouraging students to apply to backup programs. Traditionally, I work individually with the students to get them to one program because I know they're going to get accepted. that's our close relationship with our program providers. Additionally, but right now for the pandemic, students are applying to backup programs just in case the program closes for lack of enough student participation, just in case the country closes to visiting students, just in case the city is no longer safe enough for students. Additionally, all students will dual register. They're going to be registering for their semester off campus and for the semester on campus, just in case. We're currently only working with outside organizations that are offering quarantine resources. If they're arriving and they have to be in quarantine for 2 weeks, the organization will put them up in hotels or apartments or something for that period of time. On-site emergency updates and services, on-site administrators for as well as the faculty for emotional, physical, and academic support. And the number one aspect that I'm making sure of is that our programs have flexible refund policies. So for example, Alec will talk a little bit about where he currently is, but his organization actually allowed students to apply and change their mind up to 24 hours prior to the arrival date, which is very, very generous. It's really hard to manage an organization or create a budget when they're being so flexible with withdrawal policies. What students need to do, especially during the pandemic, is to be flexible. We have one student abroad who applied to 4 different programs. She's on her 4th choice program, but that's because it's the only one that was still running. And she said, I really want to study abroad. The other thing, so students have to be flexible, willing to adapt. But the other thing is be willing to remain in their country, in their host country for the entire semester. This is not the time to be traveling to outside locations, may not be able to get back into your current country. And if their courses are in person, which most of them are, you're not going to be able to finish your semester. If you're traveling to Italy, you can't get back in, you're stuck in Italy. You need to come home then, and then it's too late to be enrolled in either program at CMC or abroad. So most programs are not allowing travel to outside countries. I think because it's really nuts and bolts from me, but through your questions, you're going to ask various other topics or ideas that may come back to me. I think what I'd like to do is introduce, like I said, the 4 most important people here. And they are our student panel. So we have a smorgasbord of everything. It's kind of like being in Spain where you have tapas. We have pre-pandemic Simran Arora, who studied abroad in Copenhagen, Denmark. Pandemic outbreak, the semester of the outbreak. I feel like we should just, Theodore, who is in Amsterdam, spring 20, and was one of the students who was evacuated during the semester, had to come home. Sophia Ramirez Brown is a student who studied abroad in Seoul last semester and currently abroad, Alex Sinek in Stockholm, Sweden. So I apologize if I mispronounced anyone's name, but if we can go, let's go in order of the slide first. If you don't mind introducing yourself, saying a little bit about how you chose your program, maybe best part of it, or a good day or a difficult day that you managed to get through, something about yourself. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So Simran, do you mind going first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Simran. I'm from India and I am a senior at CMC currently. I studied abroad in 2019, which now feels like decades ago, given how much has changed in the world since then. I want to work in the education sector, so Denmark seemed like a fairly obvious choice given how great their education systems are. I also wanted to be in Europe to be able to travel, things we cannot do anymore. But also, I think I was really interested in the classes they were teaching and the way they were teaching and things like that. So it was a fairly obvious choice. It was my first choice, and I'm glad everything worked out. Um, I'm trying to remember because, as I said, it feels forever ago. But I remember getting sick when I was abroad. I was in London when I got sick, and then I came back and I had to go to the hospital in Denmark. Um, it worked out well. I remember because I was traveling, it was a bunch of canceled flights, or a taxi driver dropped me off at a different location. Um, but I think it was one of the best experiences of my life. I think it's something I think back to every day. And I'm still in touch with my professors, I'm still in touch with my roommates. And I think it definitely changed how I am as a human being and how I view life and take on life. But also, I think post abroad, every semester I would regret not studying abroad for a whole year because I studied abroad for just one semester and it's never enough.
Thank you. Theo?
Hi everyone, my name's Theo. I am also a senior at CMC, and I was in Amsterdam last spring from January until middle of March when everything went down. I chose Amsterdam because a couple of my friends from CMC were also going to Europe, and Amsterdam is a pretty centrally located city, so I want to be able to visit them and kind of travel throughout Western Europe. Also, it's one of the most diverse cities in the world, so even within Amsterdam, I wanted to have that pretty rich multicultural experience. I'm also from the greater Los Angeles area in Pasadena, which is like a pretty driving heavy city. You have to kind of drive to get wherever you want. And I'm a pretty avid cyclist, so I wanted to have some of that biking culture as well as access to public transportation. The so I did econ and psychology while I was in Amsterdam, and that was through direct enrollment. So I was actually studying at like a 30,000 student public university in Amsterdam, which was pretty cool to just be one of another international students and have those pretty connected experiences with the Dutch students. But when I was sent home, because the school is so large and just kind of the structure of the semester, I didn't have a lot of those academic accommodations that I would have, whether that be like an IES class or something like that. So something to keep in mind looking into programs.
And Sophia?
Hello, everybody. My name is Sophia Ramirez Brown. I'm a junior studying PPE, philosophy, politics, and economics, and international relations. And I chose Seoul, South Korea for the fall semester, so last semester. I was actually originally going to go to Japan, but then there was an outbreak and Japan was not looking super safe in terms of being able to go out and about and just explore Tokyo. So I was looking instead to Seoul, mostly because I'd been to the university I was going to study abroad at before, so it would have been familiar. I took philosophy, law, communications. I took a real medley of courses in Korea because due to my major, I had some flexibility that semester. So I really took a lot of courses that I know in subjects that I know this university I was studying at is renowned for. So I was really taking kind of an eclectic mix of classes, but I really enjoyed it. And one aspect that I was very fortunate to have studying in Korea, which managed the pandemic extremely well, was that I was able to travel all over the country. I wasn't able to travel outside of the country, which completely made sense. And I honestly didn't want to risk it because there's a 2-week quarantine that is mandated when you enter the country. So I was traveling around Korea for a lot of my abroad experience, and I had a lot of opportunities to meet with old friends and meet with CMC students as well who were in Korea over the course of the pandemic. So I was very fortunate that my abroad semester actually managed to go through, because I think, and then leading into like one of the harder days for me was the night before my flight, Yonsei announced that their classes would be transitioned completely to online. And it was very surprising because one of the stipulations for my abroad program was that they'd be in-person classes, but because the city itself was still open and because the experience was open to changing after the midterms in October, I was still able to proceed with my abroad program. And I really want to thank Kristen Mallory for that. Without her, it would not have been possible for me to go abroad. So I was very, very fortunate and very, very grateful to be working with the CMC team and the CIE team in Seoul.
And Alec, what time is it in Stockholm?
It is 8:19 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Alec. I'm currently in Stockholm, Sweden until May. It's amazing here. It is a little different culturally and COVID wise. I don't know if you guys know, but they did try out the whole herd immunity thing. So restrictions are actually a lot stricter in the US coming here. That being said, they set up a great quarantine period and testing period so that we could come into the country safely. Initially, my target was IES Berlin. And even before that, I play basketball for Jeannie's lovely husband. So I never thought I would get the ability to go abroad. But when they had to cancel our season because of COVID, it was kind of a silver lining because I realized I do have the opportunity to go abroad. And I really also want to thank Kristen because I saw schools and people I know at different schools canceling their abroad programs. So I just thought, oh, I won't be able to play basketball, nor will I be able to go abroad. But Kristen was really persistent and got me here, and I'm so glad for it. In regards to Sweden and our program, we are not allowed to travel outside. And a big part of our program was, if coronavirus wasn't a thing, my class would have gone to Athens and other trips. That being said, Sweden is a large place, and they've definitely shifted it to a more like close-knit Swedish experience. So I've just got back from a 6-hour trip south in Sweden. I've gone east, I've gone west, and next weekend I'm going 10 hours north to the mountains. And so not being able to go all around Scandinavia is tough. That being said, you definitely make the most out of it. And I'm kind of glad that I get more of a Swedish only experience because now I understand so much about the entire country and not just Stockholm.
Thank you. So unless anyone strongly disagrees, I'm going to remove the PowerPoint so that we can see everyone's so that I can see everyone's faces, if you don't mind. And then Jeannie, if you want to help me manage stop share, there we go. If you can help me in case I miss any questions. If people want to put questions in chat, or if you would like to unmute yourself, that either way is perfectly fine with me. I prefer to hear voices, and I love seeing all of you. So I don't know if you mind, but I'd love to see you instead of your names. And I know the students would like to know who they're speaking with as well.
I put a question in the chat. Do you want me to say? Okay, I'm Jill. I have a son who is a freshman this year. He actually plays football. So I'm wondering if you have summer study abroad sessions, or, I mean, I maybe he can't leave in the spring either, but I'm wondering about the summer study abroad.
Okay. So CMC, because financial aid transfers, CMC does not have summer school, which means there's no particular financial aid for summer study abroad. I can assist students in finding reputable programs for summer study abroad. They would pay for that out of pocket. And along those lines, then they would work with the registrar's office to transfer credits. So there is summer study abroad. There is a way to transfer credits in if they choose to go, but it's not managed, if you will, through my office. And there is instead, there are opportunities for students through the Saul Center for Student Opportunities, Internships, and Experiences. Not this summer, but I expect things will get a little more normal next summer for domestic or international funding. So, yes, I also saw, I saw a comment, great way to make lemonade. Yes, I have to say the pandemic has been horrific, and it has provided opportunities for students and individuals to do things that they didn't think they would be able to do, like Alec being able to go out. Let's see, we have Annette Messimer, who is dialing in to offer support to CMC students going through Europe. They live in Frankfurt, between Frankfurt and Paris. I expect to have students in Paris in the fall. Haven't had anyone apply to Frankfurt. Thank you so much, Annette. Any sense of which countries might be canceled before the fall? Spain is actually not canceled. We have one CMC student who is the only student on her program. Alec, how many students are on your program?
There are 5 CMC students, and then in the entire program, I would maybe 35.
Okay. Simran,
But normally there's a lot more.
Okay, Simran, how many did you have on your program?
I had like hundreds, and
Yes.
if not 1,000. Yeah, I had way more.
Yeah. So many schools have canceled study abroad. Harvey Mudd has already announced it. This year, Scripps and CMC did not cancel study abroad, and we will not be canceling study abroad next year. But many schools have canceled study abroad. So because of that, the programs actually are pretty small. And our one student in Madrid, all the other schools of students who were supposed to go canceled. She said, I'll do it anyway. And so she is the only student on her program. So Spain is not canceled. I don't know which, well, I know Australia and New Zealand have already canceled for next fall, because Australia and New Zealand, their academic semester starts in July. So they are not admitting students. I'm not sure off the top of my head if Japan is still closed. But I'm not positive about which countries or programs, which is why we have students apply to backups. Another comment, Anne, hi, it's so nice to see you. Yes, some of the Alec and some of his friends did study at LSE for the summer, and LSE is an amazing program for the summer as well, London School of Economics. Additional question, oh, 4 new messages. Let me scroll down. New message, is there a particular year, sophomore, junior? Okay, so CMC students can study abroad spring sophomore year, fall or spring of their junior year, fall senior year, or if they have completed their thesis. I actually have a few second semester seniors who are going abroad in the fall because they've took a leave of absence, and so they can go away from CMC for a total of 2 semesters if they choose to. We have a fair number of scholarships for spring sophomores because our president, Hiram Chodosh, is really encouraging students to have their off-campus experience earlier in their academic career, thereby allowing them a longer period of time to get to know their faculty members, to do internships, to have those on-campus resources that are available as juniors and seniors. Commenting on sports. What about China? China is currently listed as, so we have study abroad programs in China. They are currently listed as accepting applications. And we just need to wait until it gets closer to see. I don't know so the programs in China are actually canceled. I don't know what if, and some of you might know, was China actually closed? Did China close its borders to visitors? Or was it that the United States closed our borders to flights from China? So that goes both directions, but I think China's open. Any questions for the student?
I think just with a 14-day quarantine period.
14-day quarantine. Yeah, that's what I thought. So China's open. Yeah. Questions for the students about their courses, if they got degree credit, major credit. Sophia, I know you had the night before your departure. Were your classes, did they end up being remote the full semester? I know in the beginning they said it would only be the first half of the semester, but you would still be living on campus in the residence halls.
Yeah, so they were remote the full semester, but the benefit was that because we were living in the dorms, and I think everyone studying abroad was taking very similar courses because they were the courses offered in English, we ended up being able to meet together and take classes together. And if we were in group projects, professors were really, really into assigning group projects. So we got to meet together and work on group projects together. And we ended up being able, at one point, I think like half of my class was taking the class together. So it was kind of like it was in person-ish. And the professors really highly encouraged it as well. So that was a benefit of living in the dorms on campus.
Mm-hmm. And there's a question about academic rigor. Would any of you like to address some of the courses that might have been easier or equal or more difficult than your CMC courses? Theo.
So I was in an interesting boat because being at such a large school, there wasn't a lot of academic accommodation dealing with time zones or things like that. So I was waking up at like 3 a.m. on Tuesday mornings to take finance quizzes, and I wasn't able to get a lot of that synchronous learning like through Zoom. So I was just kind of watching the Zoom lectures and trying to catch up that way. I got 2 psychology credits. I was supposed to get 3. I actually failed a class in Amsterdam. That was sensation and perception, but I made it up the next semester at CMC. And I don't think the rigor was as tough. I think it was just the situation of having to deal with time zones and kind of the lack of flexibility on behalf of the bigger institution.
Mm-hmm. Simran?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I loved all my courses when I was abroad. I think some of the courses I've taken were like my favorite courses I've taken so far because it was really interesting and a contrasting experience from CMC. And I'm also like still in touch with my professors. But I was gonna add that one of the courses that I had to take, which was compulsory, which someone asked was a language course. And how I was like, how we were taught it was a language and culture immersion course, which was really helpful when you're living in that place and also to kind of speak to I was living with some Danish students to kind of speak to them at the grocery store, so you don't have to look up in Google Translate everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think a lot of courses kind of include or make it compulsory to take one language course, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can answer Kristen. So basically my LSE experience, it was a 1 credit course. So it was just for 1 credit, 1 class that I was taking, which actually satisfied a prerequisite for econometrics, which was really helpful for graduating at CMC. And then someone else asked if it was a rigorous application process to be at LSE. Actually, it wasn't. That's kind of one really great advantage of being at CMC is I basically just gave them my information, told them what school I was at, and they just took that and said, okay, you're in. So it was actually the opposite of what she thought it was. But that was also pre-COVID. It was right after my freshman year, which was really great. got the credit, got to experience London, and it was only one class. So I was able to see maybe a lot more of London than I would have in like a full semester experience. But it was a shorter time. And then I also had the ability to be in London and leave that program and go all across Europe, which was obviously something I'm missing out on now, but I'm not 100% regretting it because it's time of my life, and I'd rather be here during COVID than probably CMC without COVID.
I saw a question about language. Sophia, will you remind me, had you studied Korean? So did your Korean language skills accelerate?
Yeah, so I have been self-studying, self-taught Korean for 2 years. So going to Korea and taking a class was really helpful for me. And then also because I traveled a lot, I would stay at Airbnbs, but sometimes the Airbnbs would be like a room within a house because it was cheaper. And I happened to get really lucky and live with families and who were like renting out their rooms. So I'd have to talk to the host family a lot. And it was kind of like having a mini host family experience for those weekends where I was out. So that really helped with language skills. And then being in Seoul, going around, a lot of people do speak English, but it's very possible, I think, and this is the case for most countries, like a lot of people do speak English, but it's very possible to learn and to brush up on your language skills and to practice. And I think there is a lot of opportunities that my program, CIEE, presented to engage with Korean students and to try and get Korean language classes as well outside of what we were just doing in school.
So all students are required to study the host language while they're there, which is the difference between being a tourist and being a resident of the city or country for 4 months. And so Alex, Theo, and Simran had not had previous experience with Danish, Swedish, or Theo? Dutch. I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. But for example, our student in Madrid, she is taking her courses directly at the universities in Madrid and in the host language in Spanish. And so if they've had a background in the language, they do a placement test, take the language at that level, and then obviously we'll be brushing up and enhancing their language skills. Let's see. I do think that we're in a period of time that current freshmen and sophomores may not choose to do a semester off campus. I totally understand. Normally, fall junior year is the largest number of students going abroad, and I am not going to see that. I'm just not. If we're open in the fall, I know they're going to want to come back. That said, there are a good number of students who met the deadline yesterday and are saying, I'm going to study abroad even if the college is open. It really is an individual choice. So I expect our off-campus numbers to remain fairly low for the next year or so, and then slowly potentially move up. There was a question about, and that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. There's a question about maybe talking a little bit about housing and meals. CMC does not have a host family requirement for study abroad. Every program has different options. And some programs have different choices between the different options. So do maybe a few of you want to talk about your housing arrangements and how meals worked for you?
Yeah, right now, so I chose not to do a homestay, pretty much for the simple reason that I'm with 4 other CMC students that I'm pretty good friends with, and so we wanted to just have our own experience. And then because we don't have a family cooking our own or meals for us, we get a pretty good grocery store stipend, just a card that you scan at their biggest grocery store chain. And it's an ample amount. So yeah, we're definitely really well taken care of. And then as far as amenities, we're in kind of like a retirement home situation. They just rented that space out and gave it to us. So it's really nice. It's fully stocked. Yeah, nothing to worry about here. It's really nice.
So it's an apartment with the 4 male CMC students living together?
Yeah, we each have our own rooms, much more spacious than CMC dorms. So there's a plus. And then we're all sharing a hallway together.
Okay.
I can share a little bit because I think my experience was a bit unique. I was living in a dorm which has a communal kitchen, but because of COVID, I was very hesitant to cook in the communal kitchen and to leave my food in the communal kitchen just because I didn't really know what the situation was. So I was eating out every meal, basically. I stockpiled some snacks and some basic provisions to keep in my room and to keep handy, but I did have to receive a stipend that I think was rather large because I was eating out for every meal. And then especially during quarantine, I was having every meal delivered to my room. So that was also another thing I had to keep in mind. And then when the level of COVID rose in Seoul at one point, I wasn't leaving my room. So I was, again, ordering every meal to my room. But I think CMC was very, very helpful with that. And I just had to talk through a couple of things with Kristen and we could get it all sorted. So I was covered, but it was just a bit different because I didn't have the opportunity to cook for myself.
I had the opportunity to live with other Danish students, many of whom who were studying in the local universities there, which was a really nice way to kind of get accustomed to the culture and the language and kind of make friends in the area. And they were very nice. They would take us grocery shopping. They introduced us to everything in the local culture. We had a shared kitchen, and similar to Alec, I had a card and we would just swipe it in the local grocery stores. I was in a triple while I was abroad, and I've never been in a triple at CMC, but it was great, and it ended up being a nice, unique experience that I got to experience while I was abroad. I will say though, thinking about a COVID semester, I'm thinking about the benefits of living with a host family, just because you have that extra support system and that cushion of people in case you get COVID or in case, God forbid, something happens. So maybe a host family might be a nice option in these unique circumstances.
In my experience, IES Abroad rented out like 5 of these kind of apartment flats. So I was one of 5 students in this co-ed kind of living situation similar to Alec with a shared kitchen. I had my own room, washer and dryer, all the amenities you could ask for. Unlike Simran though, I wasn't directly interacting with Dutch students that much because it was all Americans on the same program. And I think that's something that I kind of missed. There was this other campus called Ulestende where a lot of the Dutch and international students all got together. And I think that's something that I definitely would have looked for when choosing my program.
Thank you. So what CMC does for meals is I give the students a direct deposit, an amount of money based upon what the program says they need to purchase food for the semester while they're there. And then, for example, Alec and Simran are on programs that they provide a stipend in the form of for meals in the form of this grocery store card. So the amount that I would that I would give Alec and Simran would be a little less because their meals are already covered by the program. And as a result, the program is actually more expensive than, for example, the program Sophia did. And for Sophia, because of the pandemic, the amount of money the organization said that students traditionally need for meals for the semester, it actually had to be increased because she needed to have a lot more food delivered to her because restaurants weren't open and her cooking facilities were very, very basic, having been in that residence hall. And so what I did with, actually, Sophia, what did I do to help you figure out or determine how much more money you needed?
I think there was just an amount you sent me, and then if it got too low, I'd say, oh, I'm here another month and I think I'm gonna run out. So would it be possible based on XYZ to get XYZ amount more money?
Okay. One other question I wanted to ask was commute time. Because if you're not living on campus, you're commuting. How long did you commute? How long was your commute and how did you commute? What mode of transportation?
Right now, I have a 20-minute metro ride to our campus.
Okay.
I had a 20-minute walk or like a 5-minute bus ride.
Okay.
It was a good commute. I enjoyed it.
I was lucky. I lived literally across the street from my campus, so it was a 3-minute walk or a minute and a half if I wanted to get on my bike.
Nice. Yeah. I think my commute was about 50 minutes and it involved walking a few blocks, getting on the metro, transferring metro, and then walking a few blocks. So it's different for every city. And residential campuses are really a thing in the US. Yeah, yeah. Have I missed any questions? I too am amazed at our students. And I really am grateful for Hiram, that he really is emphatic that the students are adults. If they and their families are comfortable and confident with their decision to study abroad, and with my experience and the faculty administrative committee that oversees study abroad, if we are comfortable and confident with the organizations we're using, we have a COVID compliance committee at CMC. They reviewed all of I love these opportunities because the students have no idea what goes into these decisions. Literally reviewed their pandemic policies, their evacuation policies, their emergency policies, and then this COVID compliance committee made a decision that yes, these organizations can still be operating for CMC students. Basically, we're all for it. We're just really for it. And I'm so impressed for each one of you. I get
Kristen,
goosebumps.
I'm wondering, did you address, there was one question that came in from Jill about the deadline for the LSE program. Did you see that one?
LSE for study abroad, the academic year is, it's a rolling admissions. CMC's deadline, you heard it first, I will be announcing an extended deadline for additional students to apply, and I'll be accepting students as late as I possibly can. I don't know what summer deadlines are because I don't manage summer, but LSE would have it right on the front of it's called the general course, and their deadline would be right there on their website. Yeah.
Okay.
Jeannie, there was a question about what percentage of CMC students, Kristen, do you think end up studying abroad?
Sure. Pre-pandemic, we're at about 47%. So by the time they graduate, about 40%, 47% of students will have studied abroad or participated on the DC or Silicon Valley programs. It's obviously going to be much, much lower now for a few years. Yeah. But what a great way to talk about yourself in an interview. You know, I studied abroad during a pandemic. And what a great way to learn that we really, really are interconnected, and we have to understand why different countries and different cultures do what they do in the way that they do it. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you to our incredible students. It is a few minutes over the end time, which was 12:45. So we're grateful you stuck with us. If you have any questions, if you students or Kristen, you want to share your email in the chat, people can follow up later. And Ann Sinek put her name there in the chat. She's obviously the mom of Alec and also a member of our parent network board. So she's a great resource as well. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Right.
I'm holding on here so you can all copy these emails if you need them. But thank you. Thank you for zooming in today. Great to see you. And we will see you again soon, hopefully.